Hey, what's going on, everyone? It is Monday, September 13th, 2021, and you are currently tuned into the Five Starr Wrestling Report podcast. This is the wrestling show that brings you two weekly uploads here on YouTube. We got the Monday show where we cover AEW Rampage and NWA Powerrr from the previous week, and any weekend events, pay per views, or news bulletins. And on Friday, we get the NXT and AEW Dynamite reports. If it is your first time checking out the show, thanks for stopping by. Make sure you subscribe, click that bell icon to stay posted on all future FSWR content. And as always, most important thing I can ask you to do is give this video a like and comment. I am getting some views on these shows, but there seems to be a lack of communication in the comments section here, so help me out with that, guys, gals, whoever's watching the show. Whether you have thoughts on the programs that I recapped, the news discussions, whatever's on your mind, anything wrestling related, not wrestling related, I don't care. Tell me about your day. Let me know down below. YouTube is not too friendly to these lesser known channels anymore with their, what I call it's a setup to fail algorithmic formula. So without those comments, I'm just twisting in the wind here. By the way, I'm filming this today from a different location, so I hope this room isn't too boomy sounding. I do not have any padding on the walls or any sound filters, but possibly I could go through and try to filter out all the background noise when I go through my editing process, but we'll see. In addition to checking out my content here on YouTube, make sure you guys head over and check out my Rumble page. That is my secondary platform for content uploads. In the case that you don't want to watch the videos here on YouTube, you can always swing over and check out my content on Rumble. And I always use it as a backup option just in case YouTube decides to, I don't know, take a video down because I said something, quote, controversial. And last thing here real quick, I always have to plug this. Make sure you guys check out my article content on the Chairshot.com. I post 4 articles each week, all varying topics pertaining to WWE, NXT, AEW, NWA. Whatever's a hot topic at the moment for pro wrestling, I will be writing about it. And to make it easier for everybody, I will always make sure that I post my most recent publication in the description, or I should say I'll link it in the description, and you can gain easy access to the site and see what I'm writing. We definitely appreciate the support there. And the articles aren't long. Most of my content is between 600 and 1,000 words, just really short readings. So if you're sitting on the can, or you're waiting at the bus station, or just sitting on your couch one day and you decide you need some content and wrestling to digest, short articles, but they're definitely worth the read. So definitely go over and keep up to date with what I post over there. Trying to fire through all these plugs as quickly as possible. I don't believe I missed anything, so let me just give a quick rundown of what's going on today. I didn't watch any other weekend wrestling events or shows. There weren't any that I knew of on the mainstream circuit, like AEW, WWE related. There might have been some independent shows, but I didn't get around to watch any of that stuff. So today I have the Rampage and the Powerrr reports that I'm going to talk about. I'll share my thoughts on those. And to close out the show, I'm actually going to read one of my pending articles that has not hit the site yet. Hopefully by the end of the day it will be. But it's something that's sort of broken the internet for a lot of fans, and that was the recent Mick Foley video that he posted. I think he uploaded it to his Facebook and Twitter as well. I know it's on YouTube. Obviously, for everybody that has not seen the video yet, the video is titled WWE We Have a Problem. And what I plan to do is run down my article on that video, just kind of elaborate on my thoughts, and then throw my share into where I stand with all this, because it's not something that I would classify as a groundbreaking news bulletin, but it is certainly one of those slap in the face ordeals that a lot of people are picking up on more and more, especially with the increasing popularity of AEW. So I'll get into that more a little later on. For now, let's run down Rampage and Powerrr. And as always, I'll start off with the Rampage report here from September 10th, 2021. We begin the show with Andrade El Idolo and Pac. And when I say starting with Andrade and Pac, that is no exaggeration. We immediately cut from the opening graphic, and both guys are already staying in the ring, and Justin Roberts is doing ring introductions. There's no promo package, no entrances, no fanfare. So again, if you're a casual viewer, or God forbid, a new viewer, and you needed some context as to why these guys are having this match, well, you didn't get it. So, this is a real tale of two stories here. I've always been a big fan of Pac, pretty much going all the way back to when I really saw him break out in NXT. And that's, God, how long ago was that? 7-8 years ago? Something like that? Wow, time flies. And Andrade was someone that, for the longest time, I never saw anything in. In fact, if you check out on my channel, it was one of the videos I posted. It was like one of the first things I posted when I started back up on here. I ran down the NXT roster and basically talked about all the call-ups that they've had and, you know, whether they were successes or failures, judging how they played out from developmental passing up through the main roster. And when I covered Andrade, I think I was on record in that video basically saying that he was somebody that when I initially saw him in the company, I just thought he was bland. And I did not see any star potential in that guy at all. And, you know, all it took was a character change and, well, to a lesser extent, putting Zelina Vega with him as a mouthpiece. And it gave Andrade a lot of leverage. And lo and behold, he flipped a switch. You know, he gained more confidence. Charisma came through a little bit better. And, I mean, we all saw what happened. He became the NXT champion. So, yeah, he was an interesting character in WWE, that's for sure. You know, as a match, I thought the action here was really good. You know, I've seen Pac do virtually every move in the book, but the one thing I always love about Pac's work is that even when he does the flips and the dives, he doesn't rush them. You know, everything he does has gravity, it has meaning, and he always looks intense while doing them. And, you know, Andrade did a lot of things here I've never seen him do before. That corkscrew dive he did to Pac over the top rope was really impressive looking. I've never seen a guy get so much hang time before on a spin. Like, that was incredible. I think there was a spot later on, too, where Andrade did one of those split-legged moonsaults, but, you know, instead of doing it how RVD used to do it, you know, by getting spring off the ropes before flipping over, Andrade just kind of stood there on the turnbuckle, and then in really quick succession, I have no idea how he did this. He just flipped himself right over onto Pac. He still got the spring on the ropes, but it was just like boom, boom, and then he was, you know, he did the flip right on Pac. Like I said, it was really cool. Hard to describe. I mean, if you haven't seen the match, obviously, first recommendation, go watch it, obviously. But they did a lot of innovative stuff in this match. You know, while I wasn't a particular fan of seeing Andrade do a bunch of babyface flips and dives when he's supposed to be the heel, you know, the bottom line is Andrade, well, let's be frank, he's been booked like shit since he signed with the company. He had like one TV match and it really didn't do anything to showcase him in a big capacity. So, you know, if there was ever a match that he was going to need to showcase what he was capable of, this was probably it. And the other thing, too, that I liked about it is that they didn't go overboard with everything. You know, this wasn't a Young Bucks no-sell spot fest where, you know, everyone has to get their shit in and nothing ever has a chance to breathe. Here, they made sure that they didn't aimlessly rush from one thing to another, so lo and behold, it came across better on television. So I appreciated that. I've said before, I don't have a problem with dives and flips in wrestling if they're used in moderation and they actually mean something. So, I like the match. The finish, god-awful. So Pac has Andrade and the Brutalizer, and the one guy that's not Chavo, I still have no idea who he is. Everyone keeps calling him Chavo's translator, which of course begs the question of why he needs a translator when you have Chavo there, but I digress. Anyway, he gets on the apron with a stun gun, a taser of some sort, I don't even know. And he's just standing there like a moron while Bryce Remsburg is waving his arms like, no, 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 don't you do it. And this eventually leads to the Lucha Bros running out and taking him out. All the while, Chavo sneaks in from behind, clocks Pac with a gimmick, and Andrade rolls on top of him and pins him. Did we need the fucking Russo finish? Could you not just have Andrade use the tights or use the ropes to win? Or, God forbid, hear me out here, just fucking win clean? Would that have been such a terrible thing? So, good match, but wretched finish. It kind of hurt the segment for me, if I'm being frank. And I have no idea what the fuck was going on with that Chavo stuff after the match. Okay, first Andrade kicks him in the face and turns on him. And if you've watched the show consistently, there was never any reason to believe that Andrade and Chavo were on bad terms with each other. So that was a swerve that made no sense. And then after Chavo's already been laid out like a dweeb, the Lucha Bros come in and they kick Chavo in the face, which at first I thought they were turning heel and joining Andrade, but then the fans cheered, and I don't know what the hell was going on here. Bottom line, they threw Chavo in the ring, Pac put him in the Brutalizer, and the only thing of note I got coming out of this was, oh yay, we might get to see a Chavo Guerrero return at some point. And if it matters any, I had no idea who the faces were, who the heels were, what this was setting up, or why I should care. So, dude. The Sting, Darby, and Tully Spears segment was generically bland. Darby and Sting did a promo. Sting called Tully out to fight him in 2021, by the way. And Tully came out from the tunnel, and he's jaw-jacking with Sting. And while this is going on, Spears yanks Darby out from under the ring, hits him with his Death Valley driver on the floor. It was a segment. I'll at least credit them for hyping up a match for Dynamite on Wednesday, because I think that's when these guys are scheduled to wrestle. Although it does make you wonder, of all matches to hype up, they chose Darby Allin versus Shawn Spears. Yeah, go figure. We had a really good promo package, primarily featuring Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson. I liked it. Both guys basically laid out their goals, talked about what it means to be a part of AEW, and gave the people a reason to care about them. Yeah, granted, you could definitely tell that their promo work in WWE really helped pay off in their delivery here, but regardless, good stuff, no complaints. It was kind of odd. Cole explicitly called out Bryan Danielson in this video, and Danielson was pretty much on record saying he has his eyes set on Kenny Omega and the world title. So, I don't know, maybe there's something there that they'll explore in due time. It's funny, too, because I hear a lot of people always talking about, like, the dream match of Adam Cole versus Bryan Danielson, and didn't these guys wrestle in WWE? I think it was, like, during the time when they were doing the Survivor Series crossover thing. I could have sworn, though, I saw Adam Cole wrestle when he was Daniel Bryan, but could have sworn I saw these guys wrestle on, like, a Raw or a SmackDown at some point. So, I'm not really sure where that dream match conversation's coming into play. I don't know. Whatever. Britt Baker, Rebel, and Jamie Hayter versus Ruby Soho, Riho, and Chris Statlander. Match was harmless enough. Although they do not earn brownie points for the usual AEW trope of everyone randomly being allowed to illegally get in the ring and the ref does nothing to stop it. But I think by the time AEW addresses that problem, Jesus Christ himself will have resurrected from the dead a third time. There was a funny moment here on commentary. I don't remember what the setup was, but the faces did some move to the heels. And Tony's like, "What do you call that, Excalibur?" And Taz, without missing a beat, just goes, "Well, he's not here right now." And that pretty much cracked the entire commentary team, including JR. So you know it's a success when you get JR to break out laughing. Hey, I'll say this. If you have to do the four-man booth, these are probably the ideal candidates to put in that spot. They are far more tolerable than the Jericho Excalibur unit. I can tell you that much. Anyway, if you care at all, Ruby pinned Rebel after some kind of insecurity kick. It doesn't matter. We had the usual split screen with Mark Henry. We were informed here that Max Caster has been antagonizing Brian Pillman Jr. for months. Months. Pardon? Did I miss like half a year of story development where the Acclaimed were feuding with the Varsity Blondes? Or is this another one of those bullshit excuses? Oh, well, you have to watch AEW Dark to understand the full context. Fuck you. I will say this though, all joking aside. Pillman cut a really good promo here. It was one of those generic white meat kind of promos, but I really like the delivery. He definitely has some of those older school vibes to his promos, and I wish a lot of the younger guys in the business would kind of take note of that. But hey, Mark's getting better at this. I mean, he basically has a new catchphrase to go along with the interview skits now when he goes, "The time for talking is over, it's time to fight," or whatever the verbiage is. And won't be long before fans start chanting that in unison. And the main event this week was, of course, Max Caster versus Brian Pillman Jr. Kind of an odd main event, if I'm being blunt. I mean, in one sense, I would have argued that Pac and Andrade should have main evented. I mean, on the other hand, considering the whole post-match deal and how that went down, the post-match angle at least would have probably not been a proper way to send off fans from the show, but whatever. I thought the work between the two here was solid. Yeah, they kept things pretty basic for the most part. The match didn't go that long either. I think it only went like 7 minutes. But Pillman ended up making a comeback at the end. Bowens tried to do a run-in. Pillman thwarted him and took him out. They did a couple more spots, and then Pillman did some kind of springboard clothesline deal to pin him. Kind of botched, looked a little bit sloppy, but I mean, I can look past that in the grand scheme of things. Obviously, afterwards, the Acclaim tried to beat down Bryan, and Jon Moxley ended up running out to make the save, which was weird. I mean, I know he's the hometown guy and everything, but doesn't really explain where Griff Garrison was. But it was a good ending to the show. You know, faces celebrated in the ring together. Fans all pop when Moxley came out. Yeah, effective closure for the program. The one thing I'll say here, I really hope they don't drop Pillman off the map going forward. You know, my concern is that the only reason they've been featuring Pillman to this extent is because they've been filming in Cincinnati. Pillman is someone that could be a star for this company. And, you know, I don't want to see them immediately shelve him once they leave Cincinnati. I mean, he had a really solid TV match with Miro for the TNT title a while back. And, you know, as soon as that match was done, they threw Pillman under the bus. And, I mean, he lost a lot of momentum. I just don't want to see the same thing happen to him again. Because, I mean, they could do a lot with him. And they can honestly do a lot with Griff Garrison, too, if they, you know, want to feature the Varsity Blondes a little more prominently. I mean, they have a pretty in-depth tag division, but I mean, it is nice to see some new faces come up the pike, and Pillman and Garrison are definitely a promising duo, so I wouldn't want to see them get lost in the shuffle. Overall, though, despite my gripes and nitpicks, good show. You know, it's definitely one of their better TV shows I've seen lately. Peculiarly enough, it also was a show that did not have a single appearance from The Elite. Maybe that's an omen. Who knows? But yeah, good stuff this week. And I'll keep reiterating this because it's important. It is remarkable to see just how big a difference 1 hour wrestling shows are over 2 hours. And for any of you out there that are pining for the idea of Dynamite going 3 hours because AEW needs more time to get more shit in, no. Fuck off with that. What they need to do is they need to do more shows like this where they focus on and they prioritize a subset of key storylines, give them time, give them purpose, and they don't try to ram more content down our throats. I mean, there's a reason it's easier to enjoy shorter wrestling shows over the 2 to 3 to 4 hour extravaganza events where, most of the time I'm just looking at my clock wondering how much time is left in the show. I will take 1 hour pro wrestling shows that dedicates itself to addressing 4 to 5 storylines, concentrating on getting over a certain amount of characters, hyping them up with promos, doing video packages, doing sit downs, and explaining why I should care about them. And I will take that any day of the week over a 2 hour, poorly produced, poorly timed, and overextended clusterfuck of a show where nothing gets an appropriate amount of time, nothing has a chance to mean anything, or nothing has consequence, and everything feels rushed from top to bottom. So there's my soapbox spiel for the week. Don't get cute, guys. Keep the show to an hour. You'll be better off for it. All right. Take a sip of my non-sponsored Black Rifle coffee, and we'll move along here with NWA Powerrr from September 7th, 2021. We begin the show with a promo from El Rudo and Jamie Stanley, and the female interviewer, whose name I found out was May Valentine after some rigorous Google searching. Anyway, she asked him about how they think they'll fare in this tag tournament, which I'll get to a bit later on. And they basically avoided the question, spent about 2 minutes putting themselves over, which, I needed the character context anyway, so I was okay with this. Wasn't much of a promo, but, May had a hard time keeping a straight face throughout, which is never a good look for your interviewers in most circumstances, and I could look past that. So they went to a break. I left the room for all of 2 minutes, and when I came back, I was watching 4 dudes wrestling, and I had no idea who anyone was. Turns out the match was Jordan, Clearwater, and Scion versus The End. It was a match. Otis and Impero are thick dudes, so I'm not exactly sure why they didn't just come out and smash these dweebs in like 2 minutes, and especially if they were just going to go over anyway. But the match was fine. The End ended up going over with some version of the Doomsday device. And I didn't catch it entirely, but I'm almost 100% sure that Jordan landed right on top of his head. Velvet Sky is still horrifically awkward on commentary. Still better than Lita, if you all remember the Mae Young Classic deal from years ago, but, the comparisons are not too far off. By the way, does everyone have the stupid Brock Lesnar man bun in wrestling now? Seriously, what is it about this hairstyle that dudes find so appealing? I don't know, maybe I'm just biased because I have long hair, but if you're gonna grow your hair out, quit being a pussy. Just fucking grow it out. If you're afraid that it's gonna get in your face too much, it's called sea salt spray and pomade. Trust me, I know. We had a Luke and PJ Hawks promo. Pretty generic babyface promo. They called out Colby Corino for taking shortcuts and whatnot. And set up another match in the tag tournament. Not sure who Corino's partner is. I would presume it is not his father, Steve. Could have sworn he retired years ago. But of course, what are retirements in pro wrestling anymore? Right, Rick? And now we've got 2 tag teams in wrestling doing the father-son duo. Kind of interesting. I should watch more of Luke and PJ's work because they look impressive. I don't know enough about them. I don't know if they've worked the indie circuit together or what, but I definitely would like to check out more of their content. Up next was Jeremiah Plunkett, I think that's how you pronounce it, versus Judas. Got a nice chuckle out of the virtue signaling referee here too. Anyway, short squash deal. Judas killed him with the razor's edge, and after the match, James Mitchell tried to have him give Plunkett another one of the edges, but James Storm came out and basically told him, cut the crap with wrestling all these schlubs and step up to fight the real deal. And he and Mitchell jaw-jacked for a minute, joked about Storm being dressed for a funeral, and Storm basically told him that he'll leave it up to them to decide which funeral they want to attend. God, have I ever mentioned how great James Storm is? Again, how the fuck Impact Wrestling messed up with this guy is beyond me. Yeah, but of course it's Impact. They messed up with a lot of things. We had a promo deal with Jax Dane and Crimson. They ran down the whole deal from the NWA 73 show with Dane taking out Crimson, which I do vaguely remember now that I think about it. Although that does beg the question of why would this prompt Dane and Crimson to have a promo exchange as opposed to, well, I don't know, maybe Crimson going in there and whooping Dane's ass, being a real man? No, they had to talk. They had to hug it out, man. Anywho, they set up a match for next week. Really didn't write a whole lot else down about it. We had Tootie Lynn versus Kylie Ray. Not really sure if I'm digging the vibe with the ring name Tootie. Doesn't exactly scream threatening. Although most professional wrestling names these days don't scream threatening, so what do I know? I mean, just out of curiosity, if some guy came up to you and picked a fight with you and you found out his name was Oni Lorcan, would you be too intimidated by that? Just saying. Or how about Marcel Bartel and Fabian Eichner? Ooh. Tootie Lynn. Hey, who knows? Maybe she has a gas problem. Get Vince on that one. I got her name. Her name's Tootie. Gotta give her a shit problem. Do skits in the bathroom. You know, it's such good shit. All right, let's talk about this fucking match. It was all right. I'll say this. Not totally sold on the Smiley Kylie deal. Still seems like way too much of a Bailey ripoff in my book. Although, to be fair, I guess I'm still kind of ignorant as to what exactly her character is. I don't know. Like, is she supposed to be the condescending heel who pretends to be the peppy fan favorite, but in the reality she's just an asshole? I mean, like, maybe a video package or an interview would help clear that up a bit. Because it's weird, like, she gets a fan reaction, but people aren't, like, solely and unanimously behind her. And, like, there's weird periods where fans will just kind of start booing her for no reason. So, I don't really know what they're going for there. But I'll say this about Kylie. She's a solid worker. She has good size. She looks like an athlete. Looks legit. So, I don't have a problem with her ring work. I just a little confused as to what exactly her persona is. It also probably didn't help when she did a job to Mickie James, but I digress. Kylie went over tapping out Tootie with a crossface. Like I said, it was fine. Not the worst women's match I've seen all week, that's for sure. We had a promo with Austin Idol, Tyrus, and again, two guys that I had to look up because I had no idea who they were. Turns out one of them was Jordan Clearwater, who I literally just saw wrestle less than 15 minutes ago. Totally blocked him out of my mind. And the other guy was Black G's, who... that name sounds so familiar. I think they did something with him on last week's show, and I just remember sitting there asking myself, what kind of name is Black G's? Is that supposed to be like some kind of abbreviation for Jesus? Or am I missing the boat entirely there? Anyway, they're all flapping their gums for a while. Idol was arguing with Kyle Davis about whether or not to look at the hard cam while cutting a promo, which I kind of thought was funny. And of course, Tyrus was out there just being Tyrus. It's actually kind of amazing how badly WWE and Impact missed the boat with that guy, too. Crazy. And by the time it was over, I really don't know what I was supposed to take away from this. Maybe a generous recommendation for the NWA staff as a casual observer of this show, or somebody that likes the product enough to want to keep watching on a consistent basis. Just because you can have everybody talk unscripted does not necessarily mean you should. Just ask the NWO how that turns out. Answer is, not that great. Big Strong Pals versus Marche Rocket and Slice Boogie. And apparently this was a quarterfinals match in this mystery tag team tournament that they're doing. Again, would be nice to see a bracket of some sort, but what do I know? Anyway, this is a total gimmick match. Sal Renaru, whatever it is, he obviously makes a good punching bag, and Mims works as the big muscle dude that makes the comeback for the team. So, they're an effective duo. They did some stuff for a while. Like I said, Sal got pummeled around for most of it. Mims ran wild for a bit. And the finish was Mims making a blind tag to Sal. Slice caught Sal coming off the ropes with a power slam, but then Mims came in from behind and planted him with a belly-to-back suplex for the pin. So BSP advances in a mystery tournament against a set of mystery opponents to be announced. Yeah, this tournament sucks. Marty Bell and Paula Blaze, I think that was her name. They argued. There was no Taryn Terrell here, which was a major thumbs up, but absent or not, it was still no good. I had no idea what they said. Most of it was in Spanish anyway. Anyway, the last 10 or so minutes of the show were the real highlights of the program, and that's kind of what I want to focus most on here. Started with a really nice video package, basically highlighting Aldis winning the NWA World title, and basically the story progression to Trevor Murdoch and having him beat Aldis for the belt at 73. And this all led to Kyle Davis bringing out Aldis and his crew for a closing show promo. And Aldis, basically ran the gamut of a whole bunch of stuff. Talked about some of his recent actions with handling management and apologized for that. Talked about being a champion for over 1,000 days and all the pressure that came along with it. Said that regardless of how people feel about him, he considers himself the greatest world champion of the modern era, which is probably too if we're going strictly by tenure. Although I would still make the case that Walter had better title matches during his reign as UK champion, but that's beside the point. He basically told Trevor that with being the champion now comes a lot of baggage, and now he has to carry that baggage as the champion. Says he's going to have a target on his back now, and everyone's going to be gunning for the opportunity to strike. And he eventually wraps up by saying that he will be the world champion again when the time is right. And this is a real good closure for the program. Aldis has his wife Mickey out there by his side. He left the whole cliffhanger of, we haven't seen anything yet. And, this is really good. There were some awkward pauses toward the end there. Not really sure if Aldis forgot what he was going to say or if they were waiting for a cue or something, because I know Mickey ended up joining him mid-promo, so I don't know, maybe they were just waiting for her to get in the frame, but something was up at the end. It was just kind of bizarre. That said, I am definitely intrigued to see what they do with the world title picture going forward. I do think Aldis will eventually get another world title shot down the pike going on a hunch here, but maybe even winning the title again. I think the issue with the NWA roster right now is there's a real misbalance of main eventers and lower card guys. In terms of like the main event scene, who do you have right now? You got Aldis, you got Murdoch. Maybe you throw a James Storm or a Tim Storm in there as placeholders, but God, that's pretty much it. And I guess Jax Dane's another guy you could fit in that mold because he's been world champion before. And then like there's just the rest of the roster that's just kind of there. But you don't really have a lot of guys right now in that title picture. And, out of the list of guys I just mentioned, I really don't see anyone beating Murdoch for the title, unless you give Aldis another title reign. It'd be great to see James Storm get a world title run at some point, but I don't know if that's in the cards or not. So, unless they have someone else in the wings that hasn't debuted yet, that they plan to send after Murdoch, I really don't know where they go with that world title picture right now. It'll be interesting, but overall, this is a much better show than last week. I'm still not sold on a lot of the talent they have right now. When you compare the NWA roster now to where it was a couple years ago, you can definitely tell AEW has done a great disservice to that show by signing away a lot of its former talent. There are some diamonds in the rough, but generally the roster just lacks depth. I think they did a better job this week with plot development and story drive, though. Whereas last week, I was totally left pissing in the wind. The world title picture is obviously the most compelling thing they have right now, so my hope is that as time moves along, they start implementing some mid-card programs and try to build up some stars to keep my interests. So, yeah, much better show than last week. So we will call last week a fluke. All right, and last thing I want to talk about here is, like I said, one of my articles that's in pending mode right now, and it's the analysis of Mick Foley's video. I think it's actually kind of gone viral now, which is bizarre. But it is my Chairshot Article synopsis of WWE We Have a Problem. And like I said, my premise here is just to kind of give you an overall rundown of the content that I'm writing, sort of break down my paragraphs and elaborate a little more in depth on where I stand with all this. Again, this article has not been published yet. My hope is that by the end of the day it will. So if you wanted to go to the Chairshot site and check it out, it should be available for you to read by, at the latest evening Eastern time, but we'll see. So, I'll start from the top here. So, obviously, as I had just mentioned, Mick Foley's YouTube video, WWE, We've Got a Problem. It sparked a lot of conversation with wrestling fans in the last several days. It's a very short and sweet video. I think it's only like 1 minute and 15 seconds long. And the premise of the video, if you have not seen it, the insinuation is that there is a distrust amongst employees in WWE and a general overall lack of morale amongst young talent. And there's sort of like, there's a lot of ways you can analyze that. But the idea here is that while fans are sort of in agreement with Foley about this, WWE is kind of playing the corporate game, and I think I actually got this from one of my sources here from the Bleacher Report. Apparently, WWE was not happy about this video, and the content that they had posted on this Bleacher Report article was that executives said that there's like this unwritten rule in WWE that employees should not disparage the product in any way. And in my first paragraph here, I basically debunk that statement entirely, because how you want to look at it, Foley's not disparaging the product in any way. His message is not inaccurate. First of all, we should get that out of the way first. But to say that Foley is disparaging WWE, that's an overreach. I would argue the case that Foley's just waving a red flag in front of WWE regarding a long-standing issue that they just need to address, flat out. And like I mentioned in the intro before here, this isn't groundbreaking news. Especially for longtime fans that have talked about this issue for decades. The relevance of this video is more what speaks volumes today, particularly with the growing success of AEW wrestling and the business model they're taking when it comes to approaching and managing young talent. And as I put in this article, bluntly put, WWE is not the be-all end-all for up-and-coming talent to succeed in the wrestling market now. AEW is signing and featuring independent wrestlers with less name recognition on a mainstream level. And while they're doing this, WWE is basically taking the polar opposite approach with the developmental system. And any of you that have kept up to date with how WWE plans to basically revamp NXT going forward, they're going back to a former business model that they worked with, 10 or so years ago, the OVW FCW-like system. Their goal now is to essentially keep their focus on signing inexperienced talent, people with no name value or little name value, and little to zero independent experience. And you basically see this with some of the more recent signings that are coming up through the pikes right now, the ones that are down in Florida right now at the training center. You're seeing a lot of no-name faces, very inexperienced talents, green as we call them in the business. And again, while they're taking this model, a handful of the recent NXT call-ups, the Karrion Crosses, the Keith Lees, the Shotzi Blackhearts, the Tegan Noxes, the Tony Storms of the world, they're either being booked and featured poorly, or in some of the cases here, they're not being booked or featured at all, which begs the question, well, why are they up on the main roster if there are no plans for them? That's an entirely different discussion in and of itself. So, basically in the second paragraph here, I'm saying if an indie worker or a young talent is cognizant to what WWE is doing right now and how it's managing its developmental system, why is that talent going to put faith that WWE would treat them any differently? Independent wrestlers, they're looking for pathways to break into the business, and they're looking for ways to acquire more income. Facts are facts. Wrestlers have choices now beyond WWE. And, for a lot of workers in the business today, the pitches to work for WWE are becoming fewer and fewer. And you kind of see this with a reflection if you do if you kind of go on YouTube and you just kind of stream independent wrestlers and where they stand with the market now. Or, interviewers will ask them questions about, well, is WWE something that you have a vision set on? Is that a company that you could see yourself wanting to go to work for? You'll hear a lot of these arguments saying, well, why would I? Am I reaping any benefits by signing a contract with WWE in 2021? And to an extent, they're not wrong. Aside from the satisfying paycheck, what do you get? WrestleMania? And like I say in the article here, it implies that they're either good enough to earn a spot on the card, or if the company even has booking plans for them, period. The talent pool on the main roster in particular is so great now. Guys and gals get passed up a lot, more often than not. There's only so many people you can fit on a WrestleMania card. So, if it's WrestleMania season and you're not booked in a prominent spot, it's easy to get passed up on. And the other thing, too, I talk about here is income is an extraordinarily important part of work. But there are studies out there that show money is only a small portion of what satisfies people's careers. People need purpose. They need direction. And you could probably make a case that those are equally, if not more important than income. Granted, like young wrestlers in the day, if they decided that they want to sign with AEW over WWE or anywhere else for that matter, yeah, they're risking a pay cut. But let's just talk about AEW for a second. What is that pay cut in the grand scheme of things? 15%, 20%. I mean, is that a real pay decrease? Especially if let's say that wrestler still has a drive to work for WWE at a later date. There's something that there to keep in mind too and consider. So, going a little bit further down in my article here, let's analyze this from AEW's perspective. What benefits do they sow? Well, for younger guys, quality paycheck, a reduced hectic road schedule, more creative freedom and liberty, an enjoyable working environment, room for growth as a worker and attraction, easy access to executives and administration. And yeah, there are plenty of issues to break down with these descriptions here, but if you're a young guy in the business today or a young gal, it's hard to argue they would have trouble discerning which company offers a more promising work experience. I mean, we hear all the time about the toxic work environment of the WWE and how hostile it is, how impossible it is to ever reach management to talk about problems, just how quickly burnt out people get with the road schedule, the lack of creative freedom and liberty there. The little say they have in their story progression or their character development. I mean, it is very stifling. I mean, you want a perfect representation of it. I always reference this because, like I joked about this before, it's sort of like my guilty pleasure to go back and listen to Punk's podcast with Cole Cabana, The Art of Wrestling. And skip to that section where he talks about what it is like working in that WWE environment. Stifling, toxic, impossible to get through to anybody to talk about issues. And I mean, if you're somebody that is frustrated with your current position in the company, or you feel that you have worth and value that is not being utilized, it can be a real psychological damaging thing. So, again, if you're a young wrestler and you're weighing your options right now, look at AEW versus what WWE has to offer. Like I said, it's not hard to discern those differences. And the last thing, too, here I want to quickly talk about is this discussion of the forbidden door. Because I don't think that should be dismissed from the conversation. You know, let's say a young talent decides that he or she would rather hone his or her craft in like an Impact Wrestling or the National Wrestling Alliance, or even do some work in New Japan. That talent has a probable chance of being able to do cross-promotion work with AEW at some point. You know, wrestlers that sign with WWE, they don't have that option. And they know that going in to sign that contract. And, you know, if you're a wrestler that wants to keep as many doors open as possible, you know, AEW is going to provide those wrestlers with the opportunities. I mean, with permission, of course. They're not going to let every single talent basically do freelance work wherever they want. But those options are available. And there are plenty of opportunities for wrestlers to make more income and make more money. You know, whereas with WWE, you're basically stamped down for that company alone. So there is the forbidden door discussion as well. So my conclusion with this article, and like I said, it's not a long piece, but the premise is Foley's video, it's 1 minute and 15 seconds long, but there's a lot of information packed into that 1:15. And it can spark hours and hours of open-ended conversation for many people. And in fact, it has. People were writing articles about it. People were posting videos about it. People were talking about this stuff on podcasts. It is culturally relevant. And in fact, that might even be understating it, to be honest with you. The real question to come out of this, how long does it take for WWE to catch up with the reality that what Foley is saying is not wrong? I mean, they're on record. They are not happy with the message. They don't like the video. They are disappointed in it. Okay, well, that is your corporate BS spin on it. But you might not like what he said. You might even try to pass it off as psychobabble. But Foley's speaking the truth. It's also important to remember here, Foley's message, while it was directed toward young talent in the business, it doesn't merely apply to them. It applies to everybody, all pro wrestlers, no matter what the age group, no matter what the demographic is. They have options. And you want a prime example? Ask CM Punk. Ask Bryan Danielson. Ask Adam Cole. Ask Jon Moxley. Ask Chris Jericho. Talent that's signed to WWE right now. There's contracts that are going to be coming up soon. I think Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are amongst those conversations right now. You think those guys aren't weighing their options right now? You think they're not filtering out any and every possibility they have at their disposal? Do you think they're not privy to what's going on right now? Just saying. I am just saying. Guys, that article, let's analyze. WWE, we've got a problem. Like I said, unpublished as of this moment. My hope is that it will be published by the end of the day today. I unfortunately do not have any say in that. That goes by who publishes it and what time it gets edited and all that stuff. So, putting this to closure. WWE, get your shit together. In AEW, not singling out you guys here, don't get cocky. Understand that you got advantages right now, and you guys are driving up a lot of success. You're signing talent, you're getting more name recognition. I think as of this week, you guys just beat Raw in the 18-49 demo. You kind of set WWE in panic mode, and you caught Vince's attention. But know who you're dealing with. I mean, I know Vince is old. I know he's senile. But that dude, he has a reputation. And if you follow the history of pro wrestling, that guy is a fighter. Maybe he's not in that same fighting mode that he was during the Monday Night Wars, during the territory days. But he's still got something. He's got balls of steel. So, you're riding the wave of momentum. But don't jump the waves too soon. Is that a cliche? If it's not, it should be. With that said, everyone, that'll do it for this edition of the FSWR podcast. If you want to stay posted, make sure you subscribe and click that bell icon to keep posted of all upcoming content. Again, podcast episodes are posted every Monday and Friday. Make sure you like the video and comment down below to help this video reach out to the wrestling public. Again, the best way you can do that is comment. And I will keep reiterating that over and over again. Comment. Did I mention? Comment. Make sure you check out my Rumble page too. A link to that I will always leave in the description bio. And in addition to that, make sure you always check out my Chairshot articles throughout the week. If you like the synopsis I gave with my soon-to-be published article here, you can check out more of my content on www.chairshot.com. You will find most of my articles under the opinion column. Name is usually under Star or Tommy Star, depending on who's doing the publishing for that day. But they're definitely worth the read. And like I said, you don't have to go out of your way to read the novel. I always make sure that everything is between 600 and 1,000 words, just to, always pay respect to your time, because I know we all have precious amount of time and we all don't want to spend that reading wrestling verbiage all the time. But, if you need a good pastime or you're just looking to kill a few hours or a few minutes, you got my articles to read. So, until Friday, I'm out. Take care, all. Have a good one.